Thank you for joining us. I am Lieven Brummel. We're continuing to look at government's first year in office. My guest today is none other than the Minister of Public Works, the man that everybody is calling almost every day of the week, Bishop Juan Edghill. Minister, how are you?
Doing pretty good and happy to know that time is flying, lots is happening.
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
You know, we have the discussion and we see politicians and we see people in public life and we never really ask them the question. From the human perspective, how have you fared over the last year? Long hours, late nights?
Well, definitely long hours, and that would mean late nights, but it goes with a feeling of satisfaction. Being able to do things that benefit people brings a joy that even if you're taking a night off for entertainment, you would not have gotten. So it's the joy of seeing people happy, their desires and their deep needs being met would have made a big difference. So the sacrifice is worth it. It's a privilege to be able to serve the people of Guyana.
Great, good to know, and that is fulfilling. And when that joy, that gives you that joy and that satisfaction, there's no greater feeling in that. But let's get right into it. You're the man that everybody pretty much calls on. There's a road to be fixed, there's a bridge to be fixed. You're the man that is on everybody's lips. There have been a number of projects, and there's so much we can talk about. In your estimation, what would you say in the last year would have been some of the major projects that you would have undertaken, overseen, or started, or redesigned?
That's a big issue, my friend, because we've had to do two things in the last 1 year. Kickstart our own program and development agenda, which would mean the projects that we talked about, the Schooner to Perica Road, the Perica to Goshen Road, the Bartica to Tamiri Road, the Linden to Mabura Hill Road, and a whole host of other things. So we've had to kickstart that agenda. So with one hand, you were trying to implement your manifesto, promises, and programs. And with one hand, plus the other hand that you were using to kickstart new things, you had to fix badly managed, mismanaged projects. Let me give you, for example, Sheriff Mandela. I've seen recently people talking about the bumps along Sheriff Mandela in certain sections where construction is taking place. But please be reminded, this project was lying there, nothing happening, when we came into office August 2nd. August 20th, I got the contract and said, you got to get it moving. And in less than 1 year, because we are approaching August and getting to August 20, we are where we are. It's not exactly where we should be, but it is vastly improved. So we had to go straight to the airport. Remember, we got a reduced sized airport, spending the same amount of money or more money, and even what you got was not properly fixed. There were some 1,500 items that were identified on a master tracking list, and there were 71 critical items to get the airport functional. So we had to get in there, get the airport functional. We have achieved the 71 critical items. Most of the 1,500 items on the master tracking list are in place, and we were able to negotiate a new contract that would see the Chinese contractor putting on 2 additional corridors to facilitate 2 additional air bridges and putting in place a superstructure for a commercial center. A big achievement. Getting fixed what was not fixed and getting the same contractor that got a reduction from the last government for moving from 8 air bridges to 4, from a new airport to a renovated section with items that were not properly fixed to bring it to functionality. We're getting that done. We were able to achieve that, and we're now well on the way of getting the corridors and the superstructure for the commercial center in place. The Demerara Harbor Bridge, almost just at the time we got into office. Span 9 collapsed. We had to get in there, fix span 9 to a place where it is operable, fix span 10, and we're still spending significant sums to get that to a certain level. So we had to fix the old, and then we had to go out and fulfill our manifesto promise and what we said to the people. A new Demerara Harbor Bridge, a 4-lane, high-span, state-of-the-art bridge that will not have to be open for marine traffic nor vehicular traffic. A big achievement. We've been able to qualify a number of companies. They're at the stage now of putting in their financial proposals. Those financial proposals are due in a couple of months, and we should have a contract in place to begin the construction of the new Demerara Harbor Bridge. You go to Transport and Harbors Department. Ferries non-functioning. We had to get those ferries into dry dock, emergency repairs, ensure that the services are provided, fixing what was mismanaged and where there was sheer neglect, and at the same time getting in place the new ferry that we left the money 5 years ago that was never, ever implemented. So we now have a contract that is signed for the new ferry with funding from India to go to Region 1, which will mean you have a new ferry that will go to Mabaruma, Kumaka, and Marijuana. And we now have to fix the stellings to be able to get that roll-on ferry. So in every sector, so if you go to Transport and Harbors, you have to fix the old, start getting the new. You go to the Demerara Harbor Bridge with one hand, you have to fix the broken bridge and start getting the new bridge in place. You go to the airport, you have to fix the airport, and then you have to get the new and the additional things, because there was no space for restaurants and all that at the airport with this reduced size that the Patterson-Granger administration gave to us with that reduction that took place. So that was the way it was. So with the maintenance of roads, we have done more than 160 roads between 2020 and 2021, the period that we have been in government, both in the urban areas, the hinterland areas, and in the communities. Right. In every NDC, every single NDC, every single town, we have done roads. But what we've had to do, a heavy road maintenance program because of the potholes and the lack of drainage and generally lack of maintenance. And then we've had to go with new contracts to put in new roads. So your two hands required three. So even if you wanted to fix what was neglected and use one hand to get started, the new things we said we were going to do, we had to still take some of the one hand and help the other hand to get fixed what was not fixed and what was neglected over the last 5 years.
You spoke of all these projects, but what were some of the major challenges that you would have found in terms of fixing, getting back into, and now starting? What would you say were some of the major bugbears to your development? And then, of course, we're operating in an atmosphere of a pandemic as well.
The pandemic had its own impact, but there are things that could have been done that were not done. For example, at the Demerara Harbor Bridge, documentation, I spoke about this publicly, the then general manager had written to the then minister and administration, highlighting to them the dangers that exist. Nothing was done. So we inherited a situation, sooner or later we'd had a bridge that nobody could pass. So that was one of the things that we faced with. You go to the ferries, they're supposed to be docked periodically to ensure that they're properly checked out and there are no holes and they're seaworthy and all the rest of it. They've missed docking schedules. So you had management in place, but policy direction and provision of resources to fulfill basic things were not there. And this is what we spoke about. $1.1 to $1.2 trillion being expended, but what it was spent on. So when we came in with our emergency budget, you had to go directly to fixing the neglect. And there is no way that you can talk about the achievement of 1 year in government if we never discuss what we met. Because you had to start from somewhere. Yes. And what we met was a deteriorated, malfunctioning, almost neglected system. The bridges were broken. You notice how many bridges were broken on the Linden to Lethem Road because they weren't adequately maintained. Gaping holes developing in roads because the drainage infrastructure. The enemy of an asphaltic road is water. Once water is lodging, the road will eventually break. So if the drains are not properly taken care of, no matter what you put on the road, it makes people feel good, and then after a little while, it undermines them underneath, and everything collapses. It's got culverts that collapse. So getting new things done, and I'm very proud about the new things that we are able to get done, and I can tell you, we are at the stage of completing pre-qualification and going to the financial proposals for the Linden-Mabura Road. Nothing was done on that when we got that brought us to that stage. We had to go out with the bidding document, call for the proposals, get that done. With the Demerara Harbor Bridge, we've already completed the pre-qualification. We are the financial proposals now. We are able to start working on a new road at number 58, a farm-to-market access road, which will move from the Quarantine Highway all the way to the Kanchi Creek. Those are new things that we are doing. We have gone through the alignment of the road from Schoonard, when you cross over the bridge on the west side, all the way to Parika. The alignment from Parika all the way to Goshen. The alignment from Bartica, coming through Foulmouth, all the way to Tamiri, so you can have an alternative route to Region 4, connecting Region 4 and Region 7. We have just awarded a few weeks ago a contract to do the road between Karasabai and Mountie Mountain to ensure that Region 9 and Region 8 are linked and connected. Then we have awarded 20 contracts to the communities in Region 8 to ensure that all the villages in Region 8 are connected to each other. They can move and they could get to goods and services to bring down the cost of living. We've continued significant infrastructure work in Mabaruma, in Maruka, in Lethem, in the Deep South, in Region 10. We have done extensive work in Region 4. You know, there was a ribbon cutting ceremony for the East Coast Highway, even though it wasn't done. We had to complete it, and we're now going out to connect the roads. Because if you have a main highway, you must be able to get people from the villages to connect into that highway in a good quality road and be able to cut travel time, which is what the main highway was intended to do. So we're doing about 18 roads along the East Coast. So we've had to do maintenance on hinterland airstrips. We've had to, people were applying for new aircraft, there was no movement. People were applying for new airstrips, there were no movement. We had to be able to conclude those processes and ensure that the local airline industry is properly recapitalized with a kind of aircraft to be able to facilitate what is taking place in our interior movement of people, goods and services. We've had to be able to align the whole industry to accommodate the advancement in ecotourism and the rest of it. As it relates to our maritime resources in maritime spaces. We've had to do lots of work in that area in terms of working with developers to ensure that they could develop facilities to serve the oil and gas industry, to facilitate development in our waterfront, to facilitate a new wave of development that is coming to Guyana. So there's a lot that has been happening, visible, and some that is not readily seen by what we're doing, but it has been manifested by way of the private sector investment and what is taking place.
In partnerships, we look at that. Therefore, you would say that you are satisfied with what has happened over the last year within your sector. And while you've given us a number of examples of stuff to come in the future, how does this translate for the regular man in the street?
Well, satisfaction, I would not say I'm completely satisfied, because we had to get our team, the technical people, to become acquainted and accustomed to the way we do things. And the way we do things is that we don't take forever. So that public service, bureaucracy, I'll keep the meeting next 2 weeks, I'll visit the road 10 days from now, I'll engage the contractor next month in my schedule. We had to change that. What we were able to do, we had to start working with our people to say, this is the way we will get it done. The request comes today, we check on it today, we get a decision. As soon as it's practical, we mobilize the resources, we get the needs of the people met. So I'm satisfied that we have made significant shift in that regard of getting our technical people to move at the pace and with the standards of excellence that we bring to the table, because we're not going to encourage incompetence and maladministration and sloth and public service bureaucracy where it comes to the delivering of goods and services to the people. We got to work. You're on the job, you got to work. So we were able to make some significant shifts in that regard. It's all not well for sailing, but they have been a complete, noticeable transformation in attitude as well as performance. So we're moving in that direction. As it relates on the issue of what is to come, now, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure is the primary agency of government charged by President Ali to create that architecture and landscape to facilitate development that will take place in every other sector. Let me give you, for example, a new road means access to new lands for housing. A new road means access to a new industrial park for agro-processing or light manufacturing. A new road also means quicker travel time, which means people who work, everybody who come to look for work in the center will now be satisfied that you could get to work in another location, get back home safely. So it means also improve efficiency and improve production. A new road also means that the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, Guyana Water could be able to provide those kinds of services to areas at a faster rate. The medical teams could get out, the supervision of classrooms could get out. Achieving universal secondary education becomes possible because the children who have to travel from a village to a location to a secondary school and get back home, they can do that in a safe way. So that overarching dimension lends support to agriculture, to tourism, to housing, to education, to health, to water, to all services. Getting an efficient ferry means you're improving commerce, regulating the speedboats and ensuring that they are operating within regulations, and it provides safety for the traveling public so people could get to work on time, get home smoothly in the afternoons, regulating the aircraft industry. Aviation safety is a necessity, maintaining the airstrips for safe landings and takeoffs, keeping the animals away from the airstrips, dealing with the drainage situations and the grass. It is all about the people, and if you can't get in by air, in many areas you just can't get in at all. So it's a support. It's not just a standalone activity, but it is a support activity. So mining, forestry, when you maintain the roads, the miners are able to get in and get out. The loggers are able to get in and get out.
Yes.
So every sector is practically benefited by it. So whether it's the private sector or the state sector, and all the goods and services that are provided. So we understand the magnitude of the task. If one bridge on the Linden to Lethem Road collapse and traffic can't pass, it's a significant impact. So you got to be able to keep those bridges functional. When there is emergency, you got to get out there and get it fixed. And one of the things that we have done, and the people of Guyana will be happy to know, we are moving all of those timber bridges in a systematic way, and we are replacing them with precast concrete bridges. So we have to build resilient infrastructure dealing with the realities of flooding and climate change. And that's one of the important things that we were able to achieve. In the area of sea defenses, you will recall when we got in, we had a big issue out at the Danzig content Maikoni area. I'm happy to sit back today and let you know that it's been completely sealed. We've awarded contracts to do preventative maintenance on many other areas, and with funding from the CDB, we're doing other significant infrastructural work. The CDB president was just here the other day. He went visiting some of those projects. So it's the same thing. With the one hand, you have to get out there and deal with the neglect, and with the other hand, you got to start implementing to take us into the next wave.
Bishop Juan Edghill, we've spoken so much, we're out of time. Unfortunately, we can do this another day. Best wishes going forward to you in the Ministry of Public Works, and continue the good work that we hear coming from you.
Thank you, and we look forward to being able to serve the people of Guyana.
That's it for us. I am Leron Bramlett. Thanks very much for joining us. Looking at government's first year in office, we just chatted with the Minister of Public Works, Bishop Juan Edghill. Remember to be safe. Have a good one.